Unlike holy will, the force, or the Tao, the will expressed by the Republican Party of late doesn't seem especially subtle or hard to read. In fact, as a psychotherapist for over 4 decades, I've said that nothing is more predictable than human beings who are under the sway of some form of psychopathology or personality disorder. In a way, the dark side of the force. Thus far, it seems the counteroffensive waged by nearly all the 2024 Republican presidential candidates not named Trump has been to attempt an unconvincing balancing act. Parenthetically, Trump's unconvincing act has nothing to do with balance, but instead an extreme and polarized one-sidedness, a zero-sum game with him as a kind of messiah figure who will reign supreme though the political odds have been unfairly stacked against him, though once he's vindicated and restored to power, those who've opposed him will get what they deserve. And we heard that already in his 2016 presidential campaign. You know, lock her up, lock her up. While the effort of the other candidates now seems to be bending their political bodies into a new pose that would never be attempted or recommended by any yoga teacher or physical therapist. This uncomfortable move involves bending enough to the left so as to appear more normal, like someone who might actually defend the Constitution and not offend less polarized, more mainstream voters. Yet somehow to bend, at least in their words, enough to the right so as to not draw the ire of Trump and his diehard, flame-throwing base. In truth, though, many in the party have come to wish that Trump would just go away and quit attempting to prosecute the past. They fear him, yet need the base he still controls. But this leaves these candidates lacking the charisma of Trump, while seeming to instill little genuine passion or appeal, though too early to be conclusive yet. That is reflected in their most recent polling. Their attempts to adapt to the changing nature of the time appear to have come too late in a political season when their former leader is facing the prospect of multiple indictments in Florida, Georgia, Manhattan, New York State itself, and the District of Columbia. While I'd imagine that those involved in prosecuting the nation's 45th president have drawn strength from the simultaneous presence of other prosecutors in different venues, for this is something that's never happened before, and the weight of bearing this alone could have been too much for almost anyone, while being then more easily dismissed had a single prosecutor been leading the charges. Forgive me for saying this, or giving the impression of having become polarized myself, but the Republican Party itself had grown corrupted, and remains corrupted, when its response to Trump's multiple indictments becomes an attack upon the Department of Justice, if not justice itself, in the attempt to defend what is indefensible. Most who haven't left the party have been sullied by the very association with Trump, like the Vichy regime in France, who'd collaborated with Hitler. Principled Republican leaders who might now be called upon to rectify the party's recent course, those still bearing the righteous aura of Lincoln's grand old party, had long ago been thrown under the bus. That bus now has no one to drive it anywhere but off a cliff that many Republicans had been unknowingly and hypnotically drawn toward since the earliest days of the Trump presidency. And it's been hard now for them to change course in an inspiring or believable way. For the most part, they appear a motley crew of political opportunists and not much at all like Romney, Liz Cheney, or Adam Kinzinger, who protested and fell on their political swords with honor. Where else in that party now is the gravitas of real leadership, or the full-on clarity of being able to call a spade a spade? If the candidates who continued to support Trump truly believed in his aggrieved narratives, they were delusional. If political expediency led them to pretend they believed in Trump's lies and fraudulent schemes, they're hypocrites. And all of this has been so obvious for such a long time. What is it saying about America that the country remains so polarized about the nature and motivations of its 45th president? Maybe that's karma too, and that we're now forced to bear the leaders and political nightmare we've deserved until that stops being the case.